Okay.
Is Bluetooth on? Is the Bluetooth on?
The Bluetooth should be connected. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the button goes on off right now. I just need to put it on and it'll go. See if it's off on. But will there be more?
Okay. So this one's going. This is YouTube.
I'm gonna go live here as well.
Okay.
Instagram.
Fantastic. And then if I can grab Sister
And
Clifford's
I just
one.
need to go live.
Go for it. And I'll just make sure that it's working on all platforms. Oh, there's a little piece. There's a little piece hanging off there. Oh, you might have used it earlier. Did we go live on Tarbiyah Institute yet?
Not yet.
Okay. It's not showing. But we've gone live on Imam Azeez. Yep, we're live on Imam Azeez. So it's all good. We're live on Tarbiyah Institute's Instagram. That's good. And we're live on YouTube. So all of them are good except for the Excuse Facebook.
What time is it?
It's 45. Yeah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. I begin in the name of Allah. I invoke His peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I ask Allah to extend His blessings to the Prophet's family, his descendants, to the Prophet's companions and their followers, and all the men and women that walk steadily in their footsteps. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among them. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, Jazakumullah khair for tuning in. I'm so not used to the idea of live videos and live feeds. However, this is the necessity of the time, it seems. Most of the masajid have been closed. In order for us to follow health regulations, it was a very, very difficult decision to make. I could not believe myself yesterday when I walked into the masjid and I looked at the carpet and I realized that this is going to be empty for only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how long. It was a difficult feeling, but most masajid in Sacramento and California and America, they have made the decision, I think it's the wise decision, to basically suspend Salatul Jum'ah and any large gatherings. I think that is the recommendation now of health authorities around the world, the WHO and other organizations, that it is absolutely imperative right now to perform what they call social distancing, just staying away from people as much as possible. I think that would be the way to go at this point. And I wanted to address, just a few 50 matters pertaining to this subject, just to make sure that people's hearts are comfortable with the decision that was made. The suspension of Jum'ah. This is the first time I personally witnessed this in my entire lifetime, so it's very difficult for me. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is coming from, a strong Shar'i background, fiqhi background. It's not just, sort of like a out of thin air type of decision. in the ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ said it very clearly, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. One should not be a subject of any harm, nor should that person subject others to any type of harm. When you walk into a masjid or a large gathering, you don't know who's infected, you don't know if you're a carrier yourself, you might inflict harm on others, or might be a subject of others inflicting harm on you. The beautiful ayah in the Quran that I wanted to address, really, really powerful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ هُوَ جِتَبَاكُمْ. Strive in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability, in excellence, for He is the one that selected you, chose you to be Muslims. وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ هُوَ جِتَبَاكُمْ وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. It is not Allah's intention to subject you to any a hardship with regards to matters of religion. And so the deen and the way we practice it is supposed to bring ease to our lives, is supposed to bring a value to our lives and benefit to our lives. And if I know, perhaps with not 100% certainty, but if I know that going to a large gathering and going to a masjid for Jum'ah might put me in a huge vulnerable state, where I might contract, a deadly disease, I think that would be one of those times in which an exception needs to be made. The beautiful story that a lot of people cite these days, and that's the thing about those pandemics. They allow us to kind of dig into the tradition and get exposed to some of the aspects and the angles that we've never ever addressed before. So it was basically during the conquests of the Fertile Crescent. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, the great companion of the Prophet ﷺ, is there. He's the general. And after the land was acquired and the territories were acquired, he invites the Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab in order to come, to elevate the morale of the troops and so forth. So Umar travels all the way from Arabia to what is present day Syria. And he heard that there is this widespread plague, so to speak, in those territories. So he consulted with all the groups of the companions and so forth, and he decided not to enter the city. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah was upset, and he was kind of disappointed, and he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, atafirru min qadarillah? Commander of the faithful, are you trying to escape the decree of Allah? So Umar ibn al-Khattab responded, and you know how strong he was. He said to him, if this came from anyone else, I would have responded differently. But because you are Abu Ubaidah, I will tell you why. نحن نفر من قدر الله إلى قدر الله. We escape from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here in order to take the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. So ultimately, Umar ibn al-Khattab decided not to enter that city, knowing that there is an epidemic over there. So Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, the other companion, he was actually a witness to this conversation, and he said to them both, I have heard beautiful guidance from the Prophet ﷺ about this matter, in which he basically said, إِذَا سَمِعْتُمُ الطَّاعُونَ بِأَرْضٍ فَلَا تَدْخُلُوهَا. If you hear that there is an epidemic in a certain area, do not enter that area. وَإِذَا وَقَعَ بِأَرْضٍ وَأَنْتُمْ فِيهَا فَلَا تَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا. And if that epidemic basically took place in a particular city or a locality, and you are in there and you feel like you might be infected, don't leave and go to other areas where you might actually bring that infection or cause that infection to spread. I wanted to share with you, some of these stories from the tradition, just so that your hearts are at ease when you make that very difficult decision not to go to Jum'ah. And I know, alhamdulillah, the vast majority of our community takes Jum'ah very, very seriously, but at least you understand why this decision is being made, and it's done not because we're scared, but because we want to make sure that we are not instruments in the spread of this disease. Now, I want to speak to some very important spiritual items here that, inshallah ta'ala, will fortify our hearts as we embark upon this journey. It's sad, but I still have to say it. I'm not sure when we're going to be able to come back to the masjid for Jummah, right? Nobody really knows how long this thing is going to take before it's completely contained. What if it goes into Ramadan? What if we have to cancel Taraweeh? I mean, you guys, this is a very serious matter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and preserve us. So we might be a little bit apart from the spirituality of the masjid for a while. I wanted to make sure that we have some fundamental spiritual truths that we can go off of in the upcoming weeks, inshallah, as this pandemic unfolds. Hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, very, very soon it'll come to an end. The ayah in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن يَمْسَسْكُمْ قَرْحٌ فَقَدْ مَسَّ الْقَوْمَ قَرْحٌ مِثْلُ. If a calamity befalls you, know that similar calamities have befallen other people as well. It's interesting because I can't even tell you how many times during Jum'ah I've spoken to our community and I have said to them in no uncertain terms, look at all these other countries and nations. Look at Gaza and Yemen and Iraq and look at Kashmir and Uyghur Muslims and Muslims in Burma. When they cannot even feel safe to go to their masajid and perform Salatul Jum'ah, right? Because literally any bad thing could happen to them. The masjid could be bombarded, right? But here we are, living in the West, enjoying all the safety and security of our existence and coming to the masjid for granted. And, make dua for your brothers and sisters because they don't have that same opportunity, and show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you come to the masajid. It's incredible that how the tables have turned. I was looking at the corona spread map, and I realized that there is so many African countries that have not reported any cases yet. And of course, someone might say, well, it's probably underreporting or no reporting. And I would say, okay, at least someone would have blown the whistle somewhere that there is like one case in Angola or something, right? But the fact of the matter is there's so many African countries that don't have any cases. And subhanAllah, we used to not look down, but at least we used to think, a little bit less of those countries. They're backwards, they're poor, they don't have strong healthcare systems, right? They don't have, emergency response or whatever. Here we are. See how the tables have turned? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you in the Quran, if a calamity befalls you, remember that it has befallen other people as well, right? وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. The days of fortune and misfortune are distributed among men, among human beings. 2 weeks ago, this was not conceivable for us. That I'm going to be sitting in my study, right, recording a talk on Friday instead of being at the masjid serving my community and giving the khutbah, right? It was completely inconceivable for us, but here we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that the tables do turn. And there's ebbs and flows of life. History, takes its different directions and trajectories. And this universe has one master, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter how much you take things for granted, you're a Western Muslim, you live in the West and the security and safety of America, you get in your car and you drive to your masjid or your work or whatever. Nope, you don't take anything for granted, because ultimately it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that makes those decisions. And I wanted to make sure that we are reminded of this. Now, the second point is this: as we take our precautions and as we follow all the health advices coming from the government and our leaders and so forth, we need to make sure that we don't go to any of the extremes, right? It is one thing to ensure that we are not instruments in the spread of disease, but with the same fervor, we need to make sure that we are not instruments in the spread of fear and misinformation, and that we do not contribute to mass hysteria, brothers and sisters, right? We have to be calm and collected. We have to understand that it is all happening with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to take our precautions, but at the end of the day, it rests in the hands of the Creator. Allah says in the Quran, قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Say, no harm will reach us, except if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills it, right? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, مَا أَصَابَكَ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُخْطِئَكَ وَمَا أَخْطَأَكَ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِيُصِيبَكَ. What has hit you was never meant to miss you. And what has already missed you was never meant to hit you in the first place. We take our precautions, but ultimately we know that it is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam warns against the spread of false information. Don't share everything you're getting on social media, right? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, بِئْسَ مَطِيَّةُ الرَّجُلِ زَعَمُ. The worst argument you can ever use is to say, oh, they said, right? Or in the other hadith, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. The worst form of lying is when you just relay everything you hear without scrutiny and without using your judgment, right? My third point is this: there's always a silver lining to everything, brothers and sisters. I know that the world looks very scary right now. I actually kept my kids home. They're not going to school anymore. Most schools in our area, they've basically been suspended, but Placer County, kids are still going to school. I decided to keep the kids at home because it really is, scary for us. We don't want to put our kids in harm's way. So these are very frightening times, but at the same time, I always say there's a silver lining, right? A lot of fathers are now spending more time with their kids at home because they have to work from home, right? Which is a privilege that they did not have before. A lot of families are now spending time with each other. All those times when mom and dad work and the kids come home and just, spend 3 hours on Netflix. Well, now parents can actually be with each other. They can have, both lunch and dinner together, which is, quite incredible. And that is something that is beautiful, that is coming out of all this mess. At least our families will be spending time with each other. I know that I'm going to be playing a lot of board games with my kids, and we're going to be, don't see, I'm warning you, don't turn this into an opportunity for the families to watch Netflix together either, right? We want to make sure that we're actually spending quality time with each other, that we eat together, that, we're playing board games together, read together. And that leads me to this very important point, pray together, right? These are tough times, very difficult times in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us to be, to look inwards, to do some introspection, to examine our own condition, our hearts, our bonding and connectedness with the deen, and see where we stand. This is a little break that has been imposed on us so that we engage in an honest self-appraisal of where we stand spiritually with the Creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the things that I also wanted to mention in the silver linings, and that is just the kids staying away from public school for a while is going to be an incredible experiment. Let's just see what happens when we spend more time with our children without the influence of public schools and peer pressure or whatever. Let's see what happens to our children. Let's see if some of the complaints that parents have, have lessened a little bit. Let's see if our kids' commitment to Islam, or their attitude or their behavior, is improving. That might actually be quite an experiment for us to keep an eyes on. Even globally, brothers and sisters, I don't know if you've seen the satellite images coming from China, like from 2 weeks ago. There was all this pollution, and then recent satellite images are showing like a lot less pollution. The impact on the environment, the impact on global economy, the redistribution of wealth that is happening in the world. Yes, we grieve in our hearts for the loss of life no matter what, but I think knowing that there's a silver lining might bring some mitigation to that grief and that fear, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things better sooner than later. I want to share with you very, very quick tips. What do we need to do right now? Of course, they're sharing with you the health tips. I think we need to abide by that. Don't go to Starbucks and Peet's Coffee unnecessarily. I can't really think of a reason that it would be necessary to go there. When you go shopping, make sure that you maintain, physical distance with people as much as possible. Use a lot of soap and hand sanitizers. Don't just hug and kiss people. Really, let's be very, very careful and vigilant, these days. But there's one dua that I want you guys to memorize, because this is a dua for protection that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. In fact, he used to say it every single day, morning and evening, 3 times each. Bismillah, الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. In the name of Allah, with whose name no harm, neither in heavens nor earth, can touch us. How powerful is that, right? Surrendering it all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And keep saying this dua. Maybe we will put it in the comments or whatever. I want to make sure that you guys know this dua and recite it, inshallah ta'ala, on a regular basis. Last but not least, people ask, okay, so what is Tarbiyah going to be doing? Guys, listen, we have not suspended our programs. We are engaged now in a very, very solid conversation in order to provide alternatives for those programs. The spiritual activities of the masjid are not going to stop, okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with these platforms, with this technology that we're using right now. And we are engaged in that conversation. How do we make sure that all of our activities, all of our services are still rendered to our community using alternative platforms? Remember, brothers and sisters, the Foothills property that we just acquired recently is not going to go anywhere, right? Just because you're at home right now, that it doesn't mean that that property does not need our support, right? We still need to make our monthly payments. We still need to pay rent in both locations, possibly through May, and we still have to, ensure that the expenses of our buildings are covered. And so I invite you as your brother, and I want to make sure that you understand that, being at home and not being able to be physically at the masjid doesn't mean that you are absolved of your obligations to your masjid, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to your community. So find a way to still support us. If I was at the masjid right now, I would have said, please pass the boxes, right? I don't think we can do that because you guys are sitting at home. But the point is, instead of passing the boxes, please follow the Venmo link. Go to the Build website. Sponsor a prayer space. Make sure that if you can write a check and send it to Tarbiyah by May, you'll find all the information on the website or right. But let's make sure that inshallah in a few weeks, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when we are back, to our operations, full throttle, that we have not lost any time or any potential, because what we can achieve together, inshallah ta'ala, as a community is astounding and inspiring and beautiful. And this cloud is going to pass soon, right? Sooner or later. The only thing in the universe that does not change is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As much as we've enjoyed the privilege of prosperity, and now we suffer from, the confinements of a pandemic, know in your hearts that the pandemic is going to go away as well. And we're going to come back to, inshallah ta'ala, where we were and even better. So let's make sure, inshallah, that we are ready for that day. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our families, our communities safe. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our children, our parents, and our siblings safe. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our imams and leaders and our teachers and those who have favors on us. I ask Allah to keep them all safe. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we will find a vaccination for the coronavirus sooner than later, and that we will celebrate very soon the day in which it becomes available in our local clinics. You take a shot and you go back to work. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept those who have lost their lives in the coronavirus as shuhada. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our community strong and to make us even stronger, through these difficult times. And I ask Allah to give us the strength to accept His decree and to be strong in times of adversity. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather all of us in His Jannah. Allahumma ameen. Brothers and sisters, jazakumullah khair for tuning in. And please share this video if you find it of any value. May Allah reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.